Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sports Vault. Jersey Joe Archino back here, and after 2 weekends of the Premier League being back, I don't think that there's any question that the big boys are here and they have said who they are. And I think when you refer to that, it of course has to be Antonio Conte, Pep Guardiola, and Jose Mourinho. Man United, Man City, and Chelsea. I don't think we can argue now after 2 weekends that those have been the best of the best. Liverpool looked like they were right in that conversation, but week 2 couldn't be more disappointing with a 2-0 loss to Burnley after they go to the Emirates and defeat Arsenal 4-3 to open up the season. But I think to focus, of course, on the new guys. Conte is a new kid on the block. Pep Guardiola is a new kid on the block. And then, of course, Jose Mourinho is not a new kid on the block to the Premier League, but to Manchester United it is. And I think all of them inherently are different, and all of them have just brought a new energy, a new vibe, a new everything to the situations they were in. And I think you look at all 3 situations last season, and all 3 of them lacked excitement, lacked energy, lacked just a basic direction with a vision. And you look at that with Louis van Gaal at United, lacked that excitement. Where was the vision? Where was the energy? Chelsea, there's no question. Antonio Conte's running up and down the sidelines everywhere he goes, grabbing and screaming players. Another extremely exciting finish for Chelsea after being down to Watford this weekend, but they're able to pull it out. And I think Pep Guardiola is probably the quiet one out of the bunch, but there's no question that even though he doesn't always have to speak or carry great actions, what he just does is he's just that cool, calm, and collected guy, and that rubbed off tremendously on his players. But at this point, I look at Conte, and before the season when I did my predictions, I had Chelsea at 4, but I know it's early, but if I could reset it all over again, I would do it in a heartbeat and move Chelsea up to that 3rd place to finish the season, because as it stands right now, Chelsea looks like they're back to the formula that won them the title the season before Leicester won it. It's one of those things where Eden Hazard looks like his old self. He's back to creating plays and just being such a dynamic player, using his speed to get up into the opponent's territory and setting people up, not just needing to score on his own. And then, of course, Diego Costa. We always question, is he in the right mindset to do what we know he can do? And with a guy like Antonio Conte, there's no question, no doubt for a second, he is being put in possession. His goal against Watford to put Chelsea up 2-1, beautiful pass from Cesc Fabregas, but still the move he had to put on to get that goal to go where it needed to be was phenomenal. And Chelsea really does look like, I listened to the interviews after with all the players, and you can just tell very easily that the right energy is there. The players are totally bought in to what Conte is preaching. And just a little funny note on Conte, he's lost one of his last 32 league matches as a manager, 29 wins, 2 draws. It's just incredible. You go back, this is a guy who just gets his team to go where they need to go tactically. He's always sound. And we heard his Italy team say it during Euro 2016. He cares about every single little detail, and that's one of the reasons why you're in a position like that. Chelsea, to me, I thought after week 1, to me, they probably looked like the most polished team, the one that made me the most curious, because they looked like they got back to that formula that they won them the title the season before Leicester did. But now when I look at it again, it's that similar thing. I see the energy. I see the manager who's got uncontrollable energy and who the players have totally bought into. And then Eden Hazard, Diego Costa, the fuel, the machines and the cog of that beautiful machine are playing perfectly. But Manchester United obviously is not very far behind Paul Pogba's debut, and he, of course, looked tremendous. And I think largely Zlatan Ibrahimovic is, of course, him and Aguero have been the most prolific scorers to start the season. And some people question, could Zlatan at 34 years old, obviously not in the prime of his career anymore, still be that difference maker for Manchester United? And I think now he's averaged at least one goal in every single competition he's partaken in for. In the Community Shield, he scored. In their first match of the season, he scored, and then again he finds and pulls the trigger with a brace in their match this weekend. But it's one of those things where when I look at it, Pogba, Rooney looks like he's even more comfortable now, and I thought that Zlatan would be perfect. And you saw his first goal where Rooney kind of set him up and he put the pass in with a header. You just kind of see how Zlatan is able to use his physical capabilities to just dominate at this level. And I thought for me, that's why even at 34 years old, I thought he was still perfectly could acclimate to this league, because he's so physically gifted. He's got the height, he's got the size, he has all the intangibles to succeed in the Premier League. And to me, it doesn't come as to a surprise at all. Even on the ESPN FC podcast crew, I listened to them during the summer, and some of them were kind of put the target, could he get to that 15-goal marker? And it seemed realistic for a lot of people, but I think at this point, 15 might even be short, selling him short a little bit. With Pogba now in there, and he's only going to get more acclimated. He had a very strong start. And I go back to that word that he used with Chelsea, that energy, that excitement, it's back. The club felt so flat and so de-energized over Louis van Gaal. They were going backwards. There was no excitement there. Jose Mourinho comes in, new players in. It's a different day for Manchester United, and there's no doubt that that excitement and that energy is undoubtedly back. And having a young guy like Paul Pogba at 23 years old, the most expensive transfer in the world now, that is one of the things that brings in that excitement. And Marcus Rashford, another young guy we're only going to see continue to develop. Things couldn't be better for Man United right now, for Chelsea right now, and for, of course, Manchester City right now. Sergio Aguero has just looked like we have seen him, but he looks different. I mean, he's always maintained his top-scoring prowess, but to me, he just looks sharper. He looks just like he has a more comfortable feel to his game now. The way he moves on the pitch, the flow of it. I feel like so many times under Manuel Pellegrini, you could see the stress taking its toll on Sergio Aguero, because his job was being made so much more difficult. But now it seems like the game is coming so much easier to Sergio Aguero, and I think you look at what he's done in the Champions League playoff for City, what he's done in the Premier League for them so far. He hasn't skipped a beat. Raheem Sterling, so much scrutiny his first season for Man City, but he's looked very sharp to start off the season. I think you look at all the cogs for Manchester City, and they all look like they're just harmoniously picking up Pep's system, doing what Pep wants to do. Obviously, the Joe Hart situation's a little bit tricky, but we know, and from all the reports out of Barcelona, it seems like the Bravo deal is just going to get done in a matter of days now. Of course, Willy Caballero getting the start in all of Man City's matches that have mattered to start their season so far. Joe Hart's days there are basically numbered, and Claudio Bravo will be brought in. And I did a podcast about this a couple days ago, so if you didn't hear, you can check it out. But largely, it's the right move. It is. Claudio Bravo fits what Pep wants to do better, but to me, undoubtedly, City, Man United, and Chelsea just have a new energy. Their managers who are new on the block to where they are have picked it up very quickly. And I think from some of the other results that we've seen so far, there's no question that they could really continue to steamroll with this. And we're going to see United and City play each other on September 10th, so we don't have to wait too much longer for these two giants to match up. But I think largely Arsenal just lacks all the things I've been talking about here. Arsenal, of course, gets a 0-0 draw against Leicester this weekend after their disappointing loss to open the season against Liverpool. But it's all those things that were lacking for those other big clubs that I think the fans now are finally just too fed up with. And we've seen the build and the decline in Arsenal's excitement and not bringing in players, and that non-excitement, that lack of energy, just being stagnant, being the same product every single year under Arsene Wenger. finally is making people wake up to what Arsenal really is, and it's just not an interesting product right now. And I think it's good for the board and good for the fans that kind of Arsenal has gone off to this, because changes needed to be made a long time ago, but they weren't. And now people are finally waking up to the fact that the changes have to come. You can't start the season this way. We have seen Man City, Man United, Chelsea doing what they're doing, and they're not slowing down at all. I think it's going to take probably until January. Before the season, I thought it was going to take until then for City and United to really be what Guardiola and Mourinho had envisioned for them. But their players look like they're picking it up much faster than I anticipated. So that is something certainly there that all these other clubs need to keep their eye on. But Arsenal, it's just not a good situation right now. It's a situation where they could return to a sense of having that energy, and you could point the fingers in many different directions of why Arsenal isn't spending and all these other things, but accountability needs to be put somewhere, and I think at the end of the day, Arsene Wenger is a big portion of who gets taking that responsibility. But largely, Arsenal, to me, I had them finishing in third before the season started. If I could do it all over again, I'd switch it in a heartbeat to Chelsea in third, because I just couldn't love more what I'm seeing. I mean, I love what I've seen from United. I love what I've seen from City. But to me, I still think Chelsea has looked the sharpest because of what they've returned to. And when you have a manager like Antonio Conte, I love Pep, I love Jose Mourinho, but the two of them much more quiet, much more reserved, not as animated as a guy like Antonio Conte. When you have a manager like that, it creates such a bond and such a unity. And we saw last season with Claudio Ranieri what he was able to do with Leicester, how he galvanized that group with his energy. Another Italian guy in Antonio Conte. It's part of the Italian culture. It's part of the way that the Italians are animated and the way and the passion they display. They are going to wear their emotions on their sleeves, and sometimes that is a good thing. Sometimes it's not. But sometimes it's a very good thing. And to me, Conte and Chelsea have just looked the biggest and the boldest. But, of course, Man United and Man City not far behind them at all. And the other club who has also found themselves without a defeat so far is Hull City. And if you told anyone that Hull City would start the season with 2 wins, no losses, and no draws, and they would still be 2,000 to 1 odds to win the title, look, Leicester was 5,000 to 1, Hull City is 2,000 to 1. But certainly that club deserves a lot of respect for what they've done to start their season, because none of us expected them to start it off the way they did, especially with beating Leicester the opening match. But they are in a situation right now where they really can't spend a lot on bringing anybody, and the manager situation is certainly something too, where they were kind of put in a tough spot when Sam Allardyce took the England job. Not a lot of people expecting that to happen, so they kind of were put into a situation where they didn't know what they were going to do, but they made the most of it. And sometimes when no one's expecting anything from you, it makes you have a little bit less pressure. And in a league like this where the pressure just builds and builds day after day, Hull City has responded to it very well. But to me, it's been a fantastic start to the season so far. So much more going to happen, so catch us in the next time. But Jersey Joe Archino here with the Sports Wall. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Archino and on Instagram Jersey_Joe_Archino. And I'll catch everybody in the next episode.